Hey folks, this is Johnny, and if you'd like to support Home Studio Trainer and Johnny Guide live streams and videos, check out my spring store. I've got everything from water bottles to shirts to hoodies, and everything you can imagine is over there. Most of it has the Home Studio Trainer logo on it, but if you dig a little deeper into the site, you'll find the hats that are available with both my black and white logo and my HST logo on it. So if you'd like to support what I do here, check that out, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you much for being a Home Studio Trainer and Johnny Guide live stream and video supporter. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next live stream.
Because you are an HST subscriber, you are automatically part of our Advantage program, enabling you to score great deals on PreSonus gear from Alps Media.
Short and to the point. Hey folks, this is Johnny, and welcome to another live stream here on Johnny Guide's live streams. Have some sad news today. I didn't know this until Johnny sent me a message about an hour before the show. One of the greatest guitarists ever, Jeff Beck, passed away today. So that's I've never been I've never followed him, deliberately, but all of the work that he's done in collaborations and stuff with other people, and then of course Led Zeppelin and all of that, it's just amazing. The work that he's done, and I wonder if 2023 is going to be another big loss for the music world. It just that's not a good start. Definitely not a good start. So Jeff Beck, our respects to you and your family, and just amazing, just absolutely amazing. I don't know what to say. All right, so we're here for Songwriting Simplified. We're going to talk a little bit about Jeff Beck, and I didn't have enough room in the title, but we were also going to talk about the most important interval in modern music, the tritone. So that's definitely going to be something Johnny's going to want to talk about, because I have no idea what that is. So let's go ahead and dial Johnny up here. There we go.
Hello.
Mr. Lipsham, how are you, sir?
I'm good, but you need to change your mic again.
Oh, son of a Byzantine king.
Ooh, we're taking out the historical swear.
Actually, that comes from the Adam West Batman series. King Tut used to say that all the time. So don't be too impressed with my historical skills, because they ain't none. All right.
Yeah, I like it.
There we go. Let's see. Settings, audio. I don't know why. Now, I changed this just before I logged in, and now it's foobar again. Studio 24. There we go. That should fix it.
Bingo.
There we go. All right. Very cool. So hopefully everybody is doing well. It is kind of a sad day. It is who's singing Steve Martin's King Tut right now? Maybe it's Jeff Beck. I don't know. It could be. Everybody who posted, it's so funny. After I put my post up on Facebook, I went ahead and I went into, the regular scroll page, where you see everybody's posts, and it looks like I'm an hour late to this here, because I saw like 20 posts for Jeff Beck. So again, sad day in music. Let's hope we don't lose anybody else of that stature again this year. So that would be terrible. All right, so Johnny, how are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Taken aback by the news.
Yeah, that I couldn't believe it when you sent me that, and not that I didn't believe you. I'm just like, is this true? And sure enough, you go right to the first page on Google, and it's got his all of his information up there. So was this morning or something actually this afternoon?
Well, I should read the official statement
Yes, please.
from his family, which is on his Twitter page. And it actually corrects me very slightly, so it's important that we read this.
Okay, great.
And it says, on behalf of his family, it is with deep and profound sadness that we share the news of Jeff Beck's passing. After suddenly contracting bacterial meningitis, he passed peacefully away yesterday.
Because he wasn't sick.
His family asked for privacy while they processed this tremendous loss. So he contracted bacterial meningitis maybe about a few weeks ago.
Was he in the hospital or something? I mean, that's not really something that you can just contract, going to Walmart or something.
It's an infection that you can contract, and then it can kind of be, kind of not really underlying, but it can kind of like you kind of think, yeah, I'm feeling a bit rubbish, but you're kind of okay, and you just kind of keep going for a wee while. And then it becomes very, very serious, and then you get rushed into hospital.
Just
the thing
amazing.
with meningitis, and in particular bacterial meningitis, I don't know a whole lot about it, but if it's treated early, you might have a chance. But if it's not caught soon enough, then there's very little that can be done.
That's so sad.
And your descent will be quick usually. So he went from being healthy to no longer with us in just a space of a few weeks.
That's sudden, because I hadn't even heard that he was sick at all.
Yeah, I don't think that it was very publicized particularly, because I think for as much as he's this big star, he's actually quite a private guy. And as Keith correctly points out here, he says bacterial meningitis can kill you very rapidly.
Yeah,
you can contract it from anywhere, and that's very true. You don't have to be in some tropical country or anywhere like that. It is something that you can catch excuse me, at any point. It is highly contagious.
amazing.
But as I said, if treated quickly, you can be okay. And he said, I lost a friend at 17 to it in 48 hours. So it can kill you that quickly. Well, because once it's in your system, it multiplies extremely rapidly.
Yeah, you never know when your time is up. That was just unexpected, because with a lot of the people that we've lost over the last year or so, you've actually heard that they've been sick for a while, they've been fighting it for a while, but when it happens like this, that's just wow. You don't know what to think, you don't know what to say. It was like my mom's passing. She went into the hospital for a back issue, and suddenly she has cancer. 4 days later, she's gone. And it's, all you can do is sit back, and because a lot of the people here in the live stream saw my mom here in the chair and stuff a couple of years ago and stuff, and she was doing so good. It was just really sudden. So there you go. Yeah, you just don't know. All right, folks, let's see. We've got 22 people in here, and we have 10 likes. If you guys could, I'd really appreciate it if you would hit that button. And if you have any stories about Jeff Beck, like our good friend Billy does, Billy said his guitar tech was Billy's guitar tech. I think did I read that right, Johnny? I can't find it.
My former production manager was Jeff's guitar tech.
Ah, there we go. Ah, very cool. So if you guys have any stories, please feel free to post them up above, and we'll read them out loud if you wish.
Well, I can start with my own Jeff Beck.
Oh,
story.
yes, please. I don't have
I
one.
went to see Jeff with his band at Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club in London, and performances from that week-long residency that he had at the club were compiled into a DVD. And the band he had featured Jason Rebello on keyboards, Vinny Colaiuta on drums, and a very young teenaged, I think she was teenaged, Tal Wilkenfeld on bass.
Oh, wow.
And he had guests come and join him, like Joss Stone, the young Cornish soul singing superstar. And it was a fantastic show. I only had intended to go to like the opening night because really it was expensive. It was all I could afford really at that time was to go to the opening night of the show. And I ended up staying for 3 nights.
Oh, wow.
Because it was just that good. I was just like, man, I have to go back and just dig that music all over again. That's right, Bob. She just turned 18. That's right.
Wow.
Tal Wilkenfeld turned 18 while she was there during that week. So yeah, I went to 3 nights of it, and then I had gigs of my own to play, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. That's excellent.
But yeah, and every night he did something different with the same set of tunes. And that was what was so great about it. I mean, he was a rock guitar player, but clearly had some jazz training at some point. I don't know whether that was in his teen years. I'm not really sure. But I knew he fell in love with rock and roll at an early age.
Right.
Fell in love with the guitar at an early age. But yeah, I mean, he had a profound influence upon heavy metal.
Yeah.
And he had a profound influence upon jazz fusion, and Miles Davis was a fan. Hendrix was a fan.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't really one of the flashy guitarists and stuff like that. He really didn't go over the top like some guitarists do. As far as what little I know, he kind of kept to the basics and just really his creativity with music and songs that he performed in was always just, second to none. And of course, not everybody was a fan. Joseph Magdalene says, enough about Jeff Beck. He was overrated. And some people said that too. I've heard a lot of my friends like, what's the big deal about Jeff Beck? And, maybe it was just a Zeppelin thing, maybe just the association with bands like that and other bands and things.
He was in the Yardbirds when
Yes.
when Clapton left the Yardbirds.
Right.
That's when Jeff Beck came in.
Right.
And that's kind of where he got catapulted into stardom, was with the Yardbirds, and then from there, he was able to launch his own band, the Jeff Beck Band, and I think he won a couple of Grammys with that band, and those changes in personnel over the years. And he quit music a few times, maybe 2 or 3 times.
I remember some of those times. And Joseph, I respect your opinion too. I've heard a lot about that too. I've seen the posts and stuff go back and forth and that kind of stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and get on subject here. Tritones.
Yeah, tritone.
Tritones. Let's see. Bob New York says, a question for Johnny Geib and Johnny Livestream. What is this chord I play? I play this guitar and I hit the notes on a piano, and the notes, P.S. I'm not quite sure what that means there, Bob.
Yeah, he was asking a question about a chord, but he didn't really state what.
Yeah, he didn't say what chord it was, but that's okay.
Maybe he ran out of characters.
Yeah, maybe he did. All right, so the tritone. Let's concentrate on the tritone.
Tritone is the most important interval in modern music. It forms the foundation of every genre of what you would broadly call popular music. So from, music hall of the turn of the 20th century, so vaudeville and all of that, all the way through the 1920s and Charleston and all of that, and all the way through blues and jazz, funk, soul, R&B, pop, country music. It's everywhere. And you cannot, generally speaking, write a pop song without having a tritone in it.
Okay.
Because it's foundational to the dominant 7th chord. and I'm going to get onto that in just a minute.
Okay.
But
Oops, excuse me.
there are myths about the tritone, and everyone thinks, oh, the tritone, this is like the devil in music and all of that. Well,
Right.
yes, that's what some people call it. I'm forgetting who it was. Was it Hendrix who? It might not have been Hendrix who wrote this song, which it started with a tritone. I can't remember the song entirely, but it started with a tritone, and it's just like devil in music and all of that. Well, and people say, oh yes, the Council of Trent in 1572 and all of that. That's where the church outlawed the tritone because it was such an evil interval. Purple Haze, thank you, Kyle. Yes, Purple Haze starts with a tritone, but it has nothing to do with the Council of Trent. It has nothing to do with the church. It was never banned. It was never outlawed, because Bach would never have written any piece of music without it, and neither would Mozart or anybody that followed him. So it's nonsense. So the tritone, why do we call it a tritone? Well, tri is the Greek, I think, or it might be the Latin for three. So it's three tones, three whole tones, or three whole steps, as you would say in America. So if we were to start on this F here, and then if we were to go up a whole tone to G, then to A, then another whole tone, you get B natural here. All right. Now, on its own, that sounds pretty stark and a little bit distant and a little weird sounding. But if I then put a D on the top, and then if I put a G on the bottom, or I can resolve it a different way. So the tritone, the F and the B, forms the backbone of a G7 chord, which resolves that way to C. So the seventh, the F goes down and the B goes up to the tonic. Whoops. So that's where the tritone is really, really important. But here's a cool thing you can do. You can substitute another chord for that G7. So instead of using the G7, find another chord that has those two notes in common with it. They may function differently in the chord, but so long as those two notes are present, it will substitute. All right, so let's take F and B. What other chord has these two notes in it? D flat 7. So this time it's the F is the third and the B is the seventh. So in G7, it's the other way around. 7, third, but when we're talking about D flat, it's the other way around, which is why it works. So if I was to put a chord 2 in front of that, it works. So that is a concept which is it's actually a little bit complex. It's more complex than that. But simplifying it just means I've just made it easier for everybody to access it. This is what we call a tritone substitution. There are two tritones involved. There's the tritone here, but there's also the tritone between the G and the D flat, which is the substitute for the G7, which resolves downwards to the C. So if I was to go and then put this G7 with that little kind of passing note there, see how that works? Now, if you overuse it, it's not going to sound particularly good. sometimes the tritone substitution will work really, really well. And then there are some times where it just doesn't quite fit, particularly with certain melodies. So you have to be careful about how you use it. But the tritone substitution is really, really cool for adding a little bit of spice to your chord changes.
It's really got a full sound.
It does. And the cool
Really
thing about
full.
this is that even if you're, let's say you're improvising on a trumpet or a saxophone or even a guitar, and you've got a band, a rhythm section, who they're just playing G7 to C, right? So if they're playing that, you on your solo instrument, you can spell out that D flat 7 chord instead with the notes that you improvise with. And you'll just add just that extra bit of tension. So if I try and demonstrate this at least a little bit.
It'd be a cool vocal line.
Yeah, so you would come up with something, you know, kind of like, here's chord 2, this is the D minor. And then G7. Going to the C. And what I did there was I spelled out, or I could have done that little enclosure. And it just sounds really, really nice over that G7 chord. And it fits really quite nicely and just adds a little bit of extra spice.
Yeah.
And you can do that whether you're playing jazz or whether you're playing country or whatever. It will work just as well. It's kind of the cool thing about the tritone. Yes, it comes out of jazz. It was developed in the bebop era during, you know, the middle late 1940s through into like the early 1950s. Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, those kind of people. That's where the tritone comes from, but you'll hear it in earlier music. You'll hear it in earlier classical music. For example, you'll hear Chopin using it. You'll hear Debussy very much using tritone substitutions.
Yeah.
And so, you know, those kind of earlier classical works would have had a big influence on the forming of expanding, you know, music harmony, particularly for music, popular music.
Man.
And so, yeah, so you see these cropping up in even Dolly Parton songs and Tammy Wynette and all of those people, and you think, yeah, you're never going to find tritonal substitutions there. Yes, you are. They do exist, and sometimes they're implied by a lead line, or they're directly played by the rhythm section.
Right. Well, it's like I said, it's just got a full sound. It just sounds like a finished chord. Let's see, if you look up above, Bob Studios actually reposted his question. He said, sorry, he says, here's the chord notes, F sharp, A, D, and E ascending.
Okay.
I was thinking.
F sharp, A, D, E. It's kind of like a D add 9 or D add 2.
Oh, Keith actually says D9.
It would be D9 if you had the 7th in there. So if we swapped out that D in the chord here for a C and used a bass note D, then you'd have D9.
Ooh, that's got.
And the cool thing about this particular voicing of D9 is in Holster Planets in I forget which movement it is. It's the one that's about the old man, the old age. You'll hear this where he's doing kind of descending parallel 9th chords. You hear Ravel do this quite a lot as well. And
Such a cool chord.
It's a beautiful sound. But what he's talking about here is an add 2 where there's no dominant 7th.
Gotcha.
Which also sounds nice. Oh,
that's good.
Now, if I just rejig the notes a little bit, swap out the A for a B, you don't need the 5.
Nah,
So
who
if we
needs
turn
a
that into a
5?
6 and we keep the 9, we've got a nice little stack of fourths here.
It's very Charlie Brown.
Yeah. And you can imply your major sevenths if you want in your improvisation. Yeah.
It is totally Charlie Brown. It is so cool. I love that sound. That's very cool. I love it. All right, we got 21 people. We have 16 likes. And Bob New York says, thank you for the old age reference, JL. Very cool.
Dave, you know that, mate.
Yeah, Paul Morgan says, very Vince Guaraldi? Guaraldi? I never heard
I'm not sure what that's in reference to.
I'm not sure either. But that's okay. So, yeah, if you guys could, please hit that like button. I'd like to see us get over 20 likes. I really do appreciate it. But you guys are funny in the chat. All right, so let's see. Let me go to Wix. There's only one person in Wix, and that is Leon. Leon, let's see. He says, is there any kind of style of music that you can't use the tritone in?
Pretty much, I would say probably not.
Okay.
Because they're so functional. That's the thing. The interval is so functional. You know, like I said, you know, chord 5 to chord 1. You can't really do that without the tritone.
Right.
It's baked into the chord. So it's kind of there by default. It's just you don't notice that it's there because we are so since like the 1750s, we are so comfortable with that interval. In fact, since maybe the 1670s, 1680s, we're so comfortable with this particular interval. Whereas if you go back to the medieval period, it was really, really dissonant and discordant. To us, it's really comfortable.
Yeah.
So we don't really get it. We don't really understand how tense and powerful that interval is, because we're so familiar with it, because it's in every popular song you will ever listen to, and it's in every, you know, post Baroque period, well, even post medieval period piece of classical music. You'll hear it everywhere. Bach, Handel, Mozart, Beethoven, and on, you know, you'll hear the tritone everywhere. So we're very, very familiar with it. But, you know, back in like the medieval period, you know, when there were madrigals and King Henry VIII and his 6 knives, no, not his 6 knives, his 6 wives, he used the 6 knives to execute some of his wives. That's another story.
Some of his wives. What a statement.
Yeah. I don't like you. I shall chop your head off. And stuff like that.
Well, when you say wives plural, it's like suddenly I'm jealous, but that's okay.
Well, you know, he kind of went, yeah. Okay.
So the reference to Guaraldi wasn't he the one who did the Peanuts music?
Oh, he did, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. All right. See, that makes sense. As soon as he said that, I'm like, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And somebody also asked, it was Bob New York. Didn't he also do the Mr. Rogers theme?
I think he did some, but the music of Mr. Rogers is just frankly awesome.
Yeah, you know what? It's so weird because I hated the show as a kid.
It's too good for TV.
Yeah, I hated the show as a kid, but I was watching a video not too long ago, and they were playing different sections of music that were in that style, and he played 2 or 3 short songs, and he's like, yeah, those 3 songs were from the Mr. Rogers show, And I'm like, whoa, that's where I recognize those from. Because you can actually hear it, when the trolley comes around. It's like,
And of course, Christmas Time Is Here was Vincent Guaraldi's as well,
yeah.
which I had totally forgotten about. And we should have talked about that on our Christmas show.
We should have. I didn't even think about it. I didn't even know the name until just now.
But yeah, there's so much you can do with the tritone. You can be as dark as you want. You can actually use it for melody. It sounds a bit weird, but you can. Like you can take Sean says, Mary had a little lamb, Sounds, nice down home little melody.
Yeah.
Well, what if we were to like stick a tritone underneath that?
Oh. Suddenly it's from The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, let's see if I can.
Oh, you know what? That's something Tim Burton would put in one of his movies.
Yeah, just like Mary had a little lamb, and
boy, was she surprised.
The lamb was depraved and
right.
was somehow related to Freddy Krueger, if Freddy Krueger had been Welsh or something.
Mary had a little lamb, and boy, was she surprised.
Mary had a little demon.
She had a little demon, right? Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what that song should be. Mary had a little demon.
Mary was Satan, in fact.
Yeah, right, exactly. All right, so what kind of music are we going to hear the Tritonian? I mean, let's go like popular or just pop music and stuff like that. Is it pretty prevalent or not?
Yeah, anytime you want to go and end a song.
Right. Oh, okay.
There's the tritone right there. See what I mean? We're so familiar with it, we don't even notice it.
Know it. Yeah, so it was kind of a dumb question, but I had to ask it because Rebecca asked it. Rebecca, good to see you.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's so prevalent. But like I said, back in the medieval period in the 1500s, it was just like you play that interval and everyone would like would faint or vomit or other effects,
other ghastly things,
other ghastly physiological effects. It really was that bad. But like with all dissonances, the more you hear them, the more accustomed to them you become. For example, let's say you had no exposure to classical music whatsoever. You had never listened to it. Pretty much everybody has heard some, at least.
Sure.
Let's say you never have, and then somebody says, I'm going to introduce you to classical music, and the first piece of music I'm going to play for you is Wagner's, one of Wagner's symphonies, or Tristan and Isolde by Schoenberg, which is atonal music. There's no tonal center. None of the notes in that music have any relationship at all. It's all. It's all that kind of stuff. Or the music from the movie The Birds, which is all pretty much non-tonal music.
Yeah. Oh
my
gosh.
Center. So if I was to just say, here you go, here's your first listen of classical music, you'd be horrified. You want to run away and leap out of the nearest window, probably. But however, had I led you on a journey starting with Handel and Handel's Messiah, and then brought you gradually period by period through until we got to Schoenberg, you would understand it. You would be like, oh, this is obvious. This is obviously the direction that music should go. It makes sense. Likewise, if I was introducing you to jazz, and the first thing I played you was an Albert Ayler record, which is freeform jazz. And deliberately non-tonal, or sometimes even bitonal. So you'd have the bass player playing a set of chord changes in one key, and you'd have Albert on the alto saxophone playing the same set of chord changes, but he would be playing those chord changes a major third away from what the bass player is doing. And so there are dissonances that happen there. And you would think, this is just frankly weird. It makes no sense whatsoever. I hate it. I think I want to stab you in the eye with a teaspoon.
Ouch.
Or other violent methods are available. But that might be your reaction. However, if I started you off by getting you to listen to the Louis Armstrong Hot 5 and Hot 7 records from, you know, the middle 1920s, and then I got you into a little bit of early period Glenn Miller before he discovered that the clarinet could play the lead trumpet lines, which made him, you know, incredibly famous because it was a sound that nobody had ever really thought of before. And then I introduced you to the music of Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn. You heard Chelsea Bridge for the very first time, and you just go, oh, this is so beautiful, it's gorgeous. And then you started listening to the beautiful voice of Sarah Vaughan. And then I introduced you to Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie. It would make sense to you. And then I introduced you to John Coltrane. And again, it would make sense to you. And then I take you forward into, you know, the latter 20th century into the 21st century, and I introduce you to the Brecker Brothers and Michael Brecker and Weather Report and Steps Ahead and groups like that. And you'd be like, totally makes sense. I dig it. Do you see what I'm saying? So
yeah, I mean, each piece that you mentioned leads into the next one.
Yeah, and the more accustomed you become to dissonance, which is my point, you become more settled with it. So you can easily go from, you know, nice, simple triadic harmony that you would expect in any Dolly Parton song. You know, that's simple triadic harmony. Everybody kind of knows that. But if I started, you know, making the chords a little bit more spicy without warning you, you know. Now, I ended maybe more tonally than I could have there, but the point is, had I just jumped straight in there, that dissonance where you'd be like, what are those weird things? And of course, I can lead you then on into something a little bit more.
That sounds totally out of tune to me.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're not accomplished. You know, that's the wrong word. You're not accustomed to those dissonances.
Well,
so the language of that doesn't make sense to you.
Right. And it's so funny because you can, from my point of view, you don't even hear how any of that is connected, you know? And it looked like you were deliberately playing chords. You know, if your camera was off, I just thought you were putting your elbows down, you know, on the keyboard. I mean, from my uneducated ear, that's what it sounds like. But so what you just played right there, is there a logic to it, or because you looked really deliberate?
Yeah, there is. I mean, when you get into more free-form stuff, then your choices of notes become less about functional harmony.
Sure.
I.e., and what I mean by functional harmony is how one chord leads to the next, and it becomes more about the sound of each individual chord in its own right. So you select the chord based on its own individual sound. And they're not necessarily designed to kind of move from one to the next. For example, and this is not going to be quite as dissonant as my previous example. Let's say I go from E flat minor here So all of those chords were related to each other.
Now, but those sounded more connected than the first one you played.
Oh yeah, me doing those aren't necessarily connected to each other, but they're kind of chosen for their own sound.
Oh,
So,
I see. Okay.
yeah, so those all are
Wow.
chosen for their own individual sound. They don't really progress.
Right. Right.
Where what I did after that, all of those chords were related to each other by a minor third. E flat minor, C minor, A major 7, F sharp minor, D minor, B minor, and then I went A flat 7 to D flat 7 sharp 9. And so all of those are kind of related to each other.
Wow. Yeah. Somebody said it sounds like my cat or my dog walking across the keyboard. You know, and it really has to do with your educated ear. I mean, I don't have one when it comes to stuff like that. So to me, it just sounds off. It sounds,
Sure.
it sounds wrong.
That's not necessarily about understanding the music theory side of it. That's more about acclimatizing your ear to those sounds and beginning to understand how the language of that sound works simply by listening and immersing yourself in that music. I mean, I'm pretty sure if I said to you, right, Johnny, I'm going to lock you in your studio, and the only music you're allowed to listen to is these Coltrane records from 1960 to 1965.
Wow.
That's all you are allowed to listen to, and you are in your studio with access to rudimentary toilet and food brought to your door.
Just a poop shoot.
That will do very nicely. And you get food delivered to your door, but you're only allowed to listen to those records for 3 months solid every day.
You know what? What a mental exercise that would be. I mean, maybe not to the extreme that you and I are talking here, but
at the end of it, you would understand how the music works.
Sure, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You know, it would just be a good experiment for those of you that are really serious about music and learning chords like this, to pick a week where a certain type of music is all you listen to. Even if you don't understand it, it doesn't matter. But if you listen to something like that long enough, you start to accept what you hear, and you might not understand why it's happening. But when you hear it down the road, you're going to say, oh, I know what that is. Or I've heard that before. Even if you don't know what it is, I think that would be a cool experiment to do.
That's absolutely right. I mean, the very first time I was exposed to the music of John Coltrane, I would have been 11 or 12.
Wow.
And I spied the records on my parents' record collection. I said, "Who is this guy? You know, never heard of him before. You know." And my mom said, "Hey, you know, if you want to listen to it, you know, you've already got your own record player. You know, take the record, go and have a listen." And the first time I listened to Coltrane's Giant Steps, I was totally floored. I didn't understand it. It sounded amazing, but I didn't understand it at all. I was totally bewildered. Made no sense to me whatsoever. I was just like, this guy's just playing random notes.
Yeah.
Must be just playing random notes.
That's what you would think if it's your first time listening.
Yeah. It took me maybe a month, maybe 6 weeks of constantly listening to these records before I started to go, oh, what he's doing is he's playing these notes that fit with these chord changes.
Right.
And these chord changes are they're related to each other. And in fact, there's like two key centers that are a major third apart. Once I figured that out, I understood how Giant Steps works. And it all made sense to me. It's a series of 2-5-1s with these key centers going from B major to E flat and then back again. and I was totally floored by it. And my musical brain just at first I couldn't contain what I was hearing, and then after a while I was just like I couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah, and I think that's really what music is partially about is exposure. You know what actually pleases your ear? What or even just as much, what don't you like? You know, what annoys your ear? And it's so funny because as I got older and I started really falling away from, top 40, even Hot 100 popular music, which my brother is the exact opposite of me. You know, he's really into the new music and stuff like that. I sit down here at night while I'm working, since I work from home, and I pop on a a Johnny Cash reel, and
Mm.
I just listen to some of that stuff. Or I'll go ahead and I'll put my entire Beatles library in some sort of shuffle mode. Uh, since my dad has moved into assisted living now, I've got a lot of his albums here. And I have like 40 Everly Brothers albums. And I did not even know some of the songs that I was listening to as I was starting to go through it. And you know what? I can't sit and listen to the top 40 like I can some of that stuff, even if some of my dad's stuff is just older music. I mean, some of this stuff is 40, 50 years old.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I just can't get in tune with new music. So now my favorite artists that I'm listening to right now are, of course, the Beatles, which I've always talked about, the Johnny Cash, and now the Everly Brothers, who I was
Mm.
always familiar with, but the only songs that I really knew with Kathy's Clown, Dreams,
Mm.
and When Will I Be Loved, and stuff like that. And I've listened to these albums now, and they had quite a few.
Mm.
And it's just, to me, I sit back and this is probably, this is my old man talking here. Why isn't music like this anymore? Why
Yeah.
isn't it? We've talked about some of the songs that are like at the number 1 and 2 positions now, and I guess I'm just old, and I just say, why? Why is that music? Why are those lyrics popular? You know, I remember when the Rolling Stones came out with the song "Start Me Up." There's a little piece at the end of it where Mick Jagger says something that everybody really couldn't understand what he was saying, and they got in trouble for it. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, you make a dead man, and it just, and it's like it has gone. Rebecca's actually talking to us from a hospital bed. I hope you're okay, girl.
Oh,
Jeez.
that's not so good.
No, it's not. But she just says, she says, well, I'm 65 years old and I have the same trouble. I try to be hip with my grandkids and I try to be up to date, but I can't stomach some of the lyrics. And
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to get into a big discussion about that, but
Yep.
but some of the artists and stuff that you're talking about here, some of the chord stuff, when some of that music was popular, and tell me if I'm really running off the rails here. When some of that music was popular, it was the music that was important and the lyrics were secondary. Have we moved away from that now with modern music? Is it the or is it actually even more true and people are just being a little bit more shocking, you know?
I think we could probably do a show on that in its
Yeah,
own
I
right.
think so too.
However, to summarize, um, I would say where we are now is I think storytelling has become more fractured in the methodology of
Yes.
how we tell a story. We're not necessarily making complete sentences in a song anymore, or writing kind of a more kind of poetic form of lyrics. It's more kind of short little snapshots, and sometimes the snapshots are these days way too obvious. I mean, there's the Smack My
Yeah.
song where everything is just like, okay. The problem with that song is not the profanity, although that is a problem with the song.
Yes.
It's not the profanity. The problem with the song is it's too bleeding obvious.
Yeah.
For me, what makes a song really, really work and make me want to actually stop and listen to it all the way through is if it tells a story and it tells it succinctly and in a way in which I can immerse myself in the story.
Yeah, and you're right. It is, just Bob just posted. He says, "Baby, it's cold outside" from the 40s is problematic for some people, but Nicki Minaj's "WAP" is okay. And that is just so twisted because in the early song things are inferred. So and in the other song things are right in your face.
Yeah, I mean,
how is that better?
I mean, oh my gosh, I love songs like Rogers and Hammerstein's "My Funny Valentine." "My Funny Valentine,
Right.
Sweet Comic Valentine, you make me smile."
Yeah.
With your heart, and it's just like, oh, it's just lovely, innocent love poetry, and it goes on to talk about. I mean, some of the things it goes to talk on about in that song. You just imagine the guy saying this to the girl, and he's going to get a slap because he said, "Is your figure less than Greek? Is your mouth a little weak? And when you open it to speak, are you smart?" The inference being, not really. But he then says, "But don't change your hair for me. Not if you care for me. Stay, my funny Valentine. Stay."
Right. Well, yeah, and think of
it's
the
all
song
about overlooking imperfections because of a deep romantic and emotional connection. Whereas Minaj's song is utterly devoid of that.
Right. And what about the song? What about the song from a long time ago? "You Can Leave Your Hat On." What does that infer? And I think I heard that a bunch of times, and I love the music in that song. I can't remember the artist who does it, but I heard the music, and it was probably on maybe my 9th or 10th listen through where I actually listened really closely to the lyrics. I'm like, oh my God, he wants her to get naked, and but again, it's inferred. Rob Kane says, "I think lyrics have lost importance in modern pop music. I don't think they will have the same staying power because great lyrics connect with people, and that's why the classics are classics." And I think that's right too, because there are some songs, like listen to the song "Hotel California" or American Pie. The whole there have been so many theories on what those songs mean, and it's not really an argument, but it is so if you think about it. Oh yeah, it was Joe Cocker. Thank you, Just Bob. And it those discussions are like no, that's not what it means. It means this. But I think the songs that are most interesting are the songs that mean different things to different people. Now that song "WAP" only means one thing. I don't care how you try to interpret it. That's what it means. Now, the song "You Can Leave Your Hat On," if you're naive enough, you don't have to take off your hat for dinner, dear. It could mean that. But some of the songs now, there is only one meaning. There is no mystery. There is no innuendo. There is nothing.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think this kind of gets to the heart of it, where I think this is a sociological change as much as it's a change in use of language.
Exactly.
It's a sociological change, and I don't mean that in a political sense.
Sure.
I think it's just we spend less time actually listening in general. We do a lot of hearing.
Yes.
But we do a lot less listening than at any time in human history. And I don't just mean listening to music. I mean listening to content, listening to the content of anything that, whether it's somebody speaking to you, whether it's your spouse, berating you because you still not stacked the dishwasher correctly. Um, we do a lot of hearing, you know, especially
Yeah,
in that
exactly.
scenario. We hear more than we listen. We kind of lose it after we've got the first line that's come out. You know, as soon as they said dishwasher, you know the rest of the story,
Right,
so you don't have to
sure.
listen anymore. And I wonder if that is where we're at with popular music. It's kind of like, oh, you've stated the obvious. I don't need to listen to it anymore. So you press, skip, and you
Right.
shuffle on to the next song.
Well, Bob Studios raises a good point here. He goes, I offer the song, Does Your Chewing Gum Lose Its Flavor on the Bedpost Overnight? I I went through a lot of years not really understanding what that song meant. I really did. I really did. And I was appalled when somebody, I think I asked somebody, I was at a party or something like that. What did, the
Yeah.
meaning, and then I went, oh,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
feel so stupid.
When it dawns on you,
I know.
oh, that's what it's
Oh,
about.
yeah, right, exactly. So there you go.
But
Let's see.
there was
Just
a
go
there was a
ahead.
question further up.
All
There was
right.
a question further
Oh,
up. Somebody said, maybe we should rename the show Songwriting Complicated. But here's the reason why it's Songwriting Simplified, and that's because that tritone is literally
everywhere.
everywhere. It's in every style of music, and that means doesn't matter what your music is, you can make use of this tritone, and you can make use of the substituting a chord that is a tritone away from its original chord, like I showed you with the G7, and the D flat 7. Now there is a slightly inebriated waltz. Now, what unsettles you about that is the tritone constantly hammering out, and also the bass line is a tritone. It doesn't resolve. Everybody is waiting for me to resolve this. And there, I resolved it.
Right, but even still, you're kind of left hanging because that last chord doesn't resolve 100%.
No, it doesn't. There's a sixth in the chord,
Yeah.
which, by the way, is the classic 1950s ending of a pop ballad. You end on the major sixth chord, and you just leave that six hanging there. You never resolve it down to the fifth.
Billy Morgan says sock on the doorknob. And you want to know something? I had no idea what it meant until I read it out loud. I'm like, what the? Oh, jeez. Yeah. I
Billy.
never heard that term, and I had to read it out loud before my brain went.
Yeah, Neil sums this up beautifully. He says, today's lyrics reflects today's level of patience and attention spans.
Yes. Oh, I think that
It also
wraps
reflects the culture. We
Yeah.
don't suggest anything anymore. We
No.
go straight to the point.
Right. Exactly.
Instead of saying, please, would you consider taking me out for dinner tonight and we enjoy a pleasant evening together, which is what you would have done a few years ago. Now we say, me, you, out there, now, go.
Right. And you're paying. All right, Johnny, this was an enlightening enlightening discussion, and we should okay, thank you there, Bob. And we should do a show on this because I would really like to get everybody's opinion. You know what I really like to do? I got to figure it out. I wish I could come up with a 1-800 number where I could have people call in. I mean, it's hard. I would have to put a delay on things so when people just start being morons, I can just remove them. But I would really love to get people's opinions on that in short, 1-minute calls and that kind of thing. I'll see if I can put something together like that. So, Johnny, I will see you next week.
Yes, indeed. Looking forward to next week where we will discuss this, this whole lyrics thing a little bit more. and you guys can spend this week looking for the most suggestive, I use that word carefully,
Yes.
suggestive song title.
Yes. Yes. That is your
And
homework.
we'll be very interested in the ones that you find.
Yes, exactly. So, Johnny, say goodbye to the folks, as only Johnny LiveStream can.
Toodaloo, everybody.
That was cool. All right, so Johnny, thank you for your knowledge and your humor. It was actually on spot. What am I trying to say? It was great.
Do you know what you're trying to say?
Well, I tried to say on point. That's what I tried to say.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, okay. It was on point tonight.
We'll
Thank
take
you.
that. I don't know
right.
if there's an after show party after this or not. I don't
Yep,
know.
I don't know. Nobody has posted anything. If you are going to host an after show Zoom, post the link in the next 30 seconds. All right,
Yes.
Johnny, take care.
Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.
And he is gone. What a fun show. I love doing these shows like that. All right, folks, let's see. Is he in his seat? Oh, he's gone. Elvis, where'd you go? I lost my dog. Oh, he went to go drink some water. Bob's studio, Bob, New York, says that was fun. And I don't know where he's going. I'm going to have to see if he's going to cause some mischief. Rob Kane says, you sounded like Beavis and Butthead just then. Oh, thought up you're never going to score. All right, folks. These are my last few words. Later.
Because you are an HST subscriber, you are automatically part of our Advantage program, enabling you to score great deals on Persona's gear from Alps Media.